What's up? It's your girl, Father Longlegs. You know me, Daddy T. This is You Can Tell Me Anything. This is the podcast where comedians confess something they want to get off their chest. It's not always good or bad. No judgment. The whole idea is just to let something out. I feel like people are always like, it has to be shameful. It has to be like. It's like, no, it just has to be something you want to talk about in depth with me. So, I mean, you don't have to want to, but you will. So hopefully you want to. My guest today, I'm very excited to have on a true patriot. Look at this American flag in his background. We're doing this over Zoom. He's the host of Anomaly Homily. We met at Limestone Comedy Festival last year. Tanner Oliver, what's up?
Feeling good. What's up?
I'm doing good. Yeah. Sorry for calling out your American flag. Well, you did ask me about it, in all fairness. When we started, You said, is this too much American flag for you? And never.
Well, I like it because the black and white American flag, it's the flag of the American Depression. I feel like it's the only time America
we're still in it pretty much.
Well, yeah, but it's the only time that America has been like, okay, we're so poor we can't even afford red and blue anymore.
Wow.
So, yeah, this is the American flag for now.
Oh, I didn't even think about it. That's why. I thought it was like out of respect. But now that I think about it, Americans, the most loud patriots have never respected this country. It's like, You know what I mean? Like the loud ones. I'm not saying like people who wear American flags. I'm talking about the ones who are like, get out of here if you don't speak English. It's like, sounds like you really don't respect the nature of this country, which is inclusivity. So
exactly. I think it's a shame that if I see a man or a woman in a American flag shirt or a hat for 5 seconds, I'm like, would they like me?
Yeah, that's over 4th of July. I did because it was such a time when we were all hating America, which I was like, I hate all the things about it, but I was like, is there a way I can try to shift? Because I was just so angry. So I thought of it as okay, it's like your friend who has grown apart from you, who has a bunch of new friends that you don't like, but deep down you're like, we grew up together, you have flaws, but I feel like you could change. And that's how I tried to see America. So I did a little toast to America that way, where I was like, because I was just everyone's claiming the flag for white supremacists, and I'm like, it's not it's not true, because the minute Biden and Kamala and Biden was called, or the race was called on that Saturday, people were in the streets with flags. So it's
oh yeah.
Even you can't. It's not you can't hide from the truth. In the moment, you still feel proud. So it's the white supremacists never owned the flag. They're just trying to appropriate America. Very classic of them.
I think the reason that they let us all know the result Saturday is so we could get fucked up. Don't you think?
I'm just waiting.
That's couldn't tell us Thursday, even though it was it was looking a little dark there on Thursday. But then Friday, it was like, all right, let's keep them one more day.
Yeah.
So they can bust out the whiskey Saturday morning.
And then Sunday is Lord's Day, so we can't do that.
No drinking there.
But speaking, before we get too far, I like to start with a good confession, just for the listeners to get to know you if they don't, and starting on a positive note. So just a quick little one line or something. But what is something good you want to confess?
Something good I want to confess?
Yeah, it could be a humble brag, or I'm really into this show. It doesn't really have to be a secret. It's just positive.
No, it would only be a secret to people that didn't know what happened to my dogs. But all right, so in I want to say sixth grade, we moved from Southfield to Bloomfield, and our house wasn't big enough in Bloomfield for my two dogs who were Siberian Huskies.
Aww.
And so I know, and so my parents were like, you got to give them up. You got to get rid of the dogs. And I was like, all right, fine. I don't want to, but I have to. So I looked up this program for vets that were coming home from Iraq, and you could donate your dog to that charity. And so then I donate both of them to the charity. The girl, Emily, ended up in Massachusetts with this family that's really cool. And then my original dog, Sparky, because we got Emily for my sister basically, but my dog Sparky, he ended up in Phoenix with this guy who was an amputee, an IUD had blown up and taken his leg and stuff. And he sent me this postcard of him and my dog in this kayak going down a river. And he was just like, look, kid, I don't know you, I've never met you, but I want you to know that your dog saved my fucking life. So that's That's my humble brag.
That's
I always go back to
great
that. Like,
one. Oh my gosh.
I did not want to give up my dog. I was heartbroken. I was like, what's going to happen to them? What's going to happen? And then like 2 years later, this guy's like, dude, like your
Aw.
dog, the best. I was like, fucking thank you.
I love
Christ.
that. How? So is it an agency where they let you talk to each other, or he had to request to find you?
He can request to find me, but I can't find out what happens
like a
to the
double-blind
dogs.
adoption.
Therefore, because like they said that they used to be able to do that, but then people would just
Yeah.
like they track down their dogs and be like, "Give me my dog back." Like some
Sure, or they
cold-hearted
like suddenly
people.
get like helicopter parenting where they're like, well, they don't like to eat that, or they don't. It's like it's not yours anymore. Like you have to let.
Yeah, and
But,
also like I don't know, the facts were on the wall for me in terms of like giving my dogs away. Like one, we do not have enough space for these dogs.
Yeah.
Two, you're going to give these dogs away.
Yeah.
Three, you're like
Yeah.
I'm in the 9th grade. Do I have money to track down 2 dogs that I gave away? No, it's a done deal. But I made it sure that if it was gonna be a done deal, that they weren't gonna just end up
Yeah.
in the shits. So.
Sure. That's so nice. I love that story. And it's like, the kayaking. I mean, it's like the whole thing. It's like just so sweet. They're together. They're doing something active, physical. So happy enough to reach out to you. I think that's a good confession.
Yeah.
And now I know charities like that exist. So if my dog steps out of line, I'm gonna bring him. No, I'm just kidding. My dog is a brat.
This is Chet. He's been in Fallujah. Think you guys get along.
Oh my gosh. Well, before we get into the confession, I like to talk a little bit about, so this podcast was inspired by when I started going to therapy because I didn't really have that as a kid and really enjoy seems to be the wrong word, but really it opened up a new world for me to be able to talk about things and like sort of in depth, things that don't always even feel like they're important just to like, unravel. So I like to ask my guests like what their experience with therapy is, and it runs the gamut. So I'm just curious, what's your relationship with therapy, and do you go? Have you ever gone? Like, do you hate it?
My relationship with therapy is like everything that I've sought out like by myself has worked out, but anything that like was provided for by like family or like connections like that didn't work out at all. Like I think like the year my parents got divorced, like my dad's a psychiatrist, so like he's used to just prescribing medicine to people and then talking about it. And so like I was like, Dad, I think I'm having some issues like focusing in school, so he got me on Adderall. But then like the Adderall, the dosage that I was on was like incredibly high, like 80 milligrams.
Whoa.
Like oh yeah, like and when you're on
too,
that kind of Adderall, like there's a certain point where you break off and they give you 20s and then they dose you down to 5s because it's in your system and your body's used to it. But when I was on 80s, I was like if somebody was talking to me, I'd be like, what? I'm focusing. Like just shut up, and then I'd go back to like
like like almost so far focused you can't actually react to the present anymore.
Yeah, it was like I call it the boot camp pill because like as soon as I swallowed it, took me about maybe like 30 minutes, but then 30 like for a full 12 hours I was just like, don't talk to me, I'm focused, this is what needs to happen, right? And then I got on the 20s, and then I just basically had to learn how to not so much be a person again, but be like a social person again.
Focus
Because
again.
people would be like, "Oh, did you go to so and so's pool party?" I'm like, "Didn't have time. Had to do this and that, and I'm just glad that I got it done." Like like I was like, for those 2 years, I just call it like the fighter pilot years, where I was just like, "Yes, sir. Yes, we dropped it, and we're back home, and this is base." Like, just it was like a part of me that like I went from having a social circle of about maybe like 10 friends to about 3 like in those 2 years, because I was just like it was that.
I
and
feel
then
that's
like
me
also
this year, but I don't know if it's no. I feel like
I don't know.
I
like,
definitely in quarantine realized how much hanging out was me pushing myself to be social.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I have my 3 friends. I love them. They're great.
Exactly. It was it was me like real, because I don't know if you've ever taken Adderall at all.
Oh yeah, I got diagnosed with ADHD like last November, and so I wait, was it November? Yeah, so I've been about a year on it now, so I've it's a little different for me because I started as an adult, and I really
Okay.
was at the point where it's like, oh, like I really do have it, and it's like, when I went into the center, she was literally like, yeah, your charts literally are like, I end up being average because I'll have like the first 5 minutes, she was like, yeah, you're like exceptional up here, and then it just drops, and then you end up with an average that gets you through like radar, so people will be like, oh, I guess she's mediocre. But when you look at it, it's like the first five, it's like so disproportionately like high performance, and then it just drops, and then I'm just out of it the whole time. And she's like,
Exactly.
you need help. But I've never taken 80. I'm on like pretty low dosage. I'm very like sensitive to stuff, so I very much like opposite of people going in for drugs. I think I'm always like, is there a solution that doesn't involve drugs? Like, what's the most
Exactly.
non-habit forming? And they're always like, I feel like, are you sure? People come in asking for Xanax. I was like, definitely not. Please give me something that I can
Oof.
stop. You know, I'm like, I don't want
No,
anything
thank you.
that I'm depending on. My goal is to get off of everything, but use this to help me transition, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like when you take it as a child, like you're already like, I mean, shit, if you take it in middle school, you're already sweating just from being in middle school. Because as we can all agree, middle school is
Yeah.
awful. It's terrible. Like, I think that we should just, like, I don't want to say get rid of it, but like, God, can we just do it in like smaller
Well,
doses?
like
Like,
a
no 8 hour
farm. Yeah,
days. Like,
instead
just
of
like
having
4 hours.
classrooms. Yeah, I feel like they should do those. Like, isn't that like that's like Montessori style, but like for like older kids, like just like let kids learn on a farm, and then whenever you want, it's like gyms where they have like 8 a.m. There's this class, let you roam around, and then when it's time to take a class, you have to like go, and if you're not there on the time, you just do the next one. Like, okay, well, what's the next class? Like, kind of like a festival. That's how school should be. And then you're still
Yeah.
required to do like, let's say at the end of the day, 10 classes or whatever. Wouldn't that be cool? You could just roam in and be like, today I'm going to take this poetry class. Kids would love that, and you would learn.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to start a
Um,
cult.
I wish it was like that, but I mean, like, okay, I won't deny it. Like, the high school I went to was pretty, for a public high school, it was pretty open, and like let's say we were like reading like The Great Gatsby or something.
Hmm.
Like, I remember in that class, my teacher was like, "What did any of you like learn from reading this book?" And I just raised my hand. She was like, "Yes." And I was just like, "Yo, you can have everything, like absolutely everything, and you'll still lack like for that one thing. There'll always be that one
Yeah.
thing you want." And then I don't know that, and like I would say that like just they don't talk about it, but the depression that comes with starting to take a lower dosage,
Hmm.
because also while you're taking a lower dosage, you don't have those other 60 milligrams to just like force you to do stuff.
Yeah.
So once I started on the 20s, that was when like I went from like just having all A's, all A's, all A's, and then as soon as I got my first C, I was just like, what the fuck is happening? Like, just like,
Wow.
you know.
That's
So
interesting too, because it really does show that it was a focus problem, because
yeah,
it's not like you didn't understand it, but you needed the additional like help. So it's like in reality, school should be more tailored, probably in a more holistic way, like in the middle, right? Like, not saying that like sometimes you need a cocktail of meds and holistic treatment, but
yeah,
ideally with kids, like nobody is all the same, so they probably design the curriculum and classroom sizes and pacing for like an average. So if you're somewhere on the extreme low or high end, you're still going to have a hard time focusing. So what they should probably do is a combination of maybe a little bit of Adderall to get you through the day
yeah,
emotionally, but then also for kids who have more trouble focusing, like slower, like longer class, like that, better study hall. Like, these are actual tools that would have helped, but instead of slowing down time, they're like, let's speed up your mind. It's like,
yeah.
well, you
Like,
could also slow down time. Like, it's okay if he learns like a few math concepts like a few months later. Like, the rest of your life you'll know it. Like, why would you
exactly.
rush to learn everything in like the same amount of days? I don't know. It is pretty wild when you think about it. It's like if you try to teach yourself. Have you ever tried to teach yourself anything at home?
Yes, yes. Japanese didn't
Oh,
work
okay.
out.
Well, okay. So that didn't work out. But let's say you took a class online or whatever that you did do all the way through.
Yeah,
You can do it at your own pace. That's what they're designed for. And then when you finish, the idea is if you did all that, put in the effort, that you learned it. But
yeah,
imagine now if it's like as soon as you start, they're like, all right, if you don't finish this in the 50 days of the school year, you fail. and you cannot go to
Yeah.
college. You'd be like, well, what if I want to miss the day? Like, that's what school is. You're not allowed any like leeway to catch up if you fall behind, which is wild.
Exactly.
Anyways, I like how we went from psychiatrists to schools. We really both do have ADHD.
Yeah, that and like, well, okay, the other thing I was gonna say is that like my dad, he suggested a psychiatrist that we go to talk about the divorce. And like me and my sister both, like when we walk out of the sessions, I'd be like, yeah, that psychiatrist was a friend of dad's, right? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, didn't it seem like she like painted dad in like such a positive light and then painted mom in such a shitty light?
Oh no.
Like he painted himself in like that taupe kind of like warm colors you see in a bar, and then he just painted my mom as like acid green, like a college bar that you're not supposed to be there. It's a terrible place. Like it's like you could just see through it so easily, and that's what made me be like, okay, if I'm going to go through therapy again, it's going to be somebody that none of my parents know, and I also have to like do this by myself. It can't just be like, okay, we're going to do it now, like, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that's why I like to ask people, because I didn't have or know any of this when I was younger, but some people I speak to do like have a really bad experience, which if you start when you're young, that often is the case, because it's usually mandated by schools or mandated by parents. And it tends to be not necessarily in your best interest. It's like, who is hiring this person? Like the school is hiring this person. Your mom is hiring this person. And that's who they're working for. And that is like a slight difference, because it's like, yeah, technically they're going to tell you they're neutral, but like they're humans. So their goal is to look at this child and be like, let me tell the mom what's going on, instead of looking at this like person and say, hey, let's talk as people. So yeah, exactly. I think sometimes with starting as a kid, it can start very much in the wrong direction. But yeah, well, this brings me to my question. Tanner, is there anything you'd like to tell me?
Okay, this has everything to do with what we talked about in the beginning. All right, so as a child, you know that right around high school, you're like, okay, where can I get money from? Where can I, I got to start getting a day job, want to, take people out and have a good time, that kind of thing.
Impress the girls, yep.
So it was at that time that I learned just how valuable the Adderall I was taking was, and I started selling it.
Okay.
And it was like a full 4-year venture of just selling my pills on the side. And like the thing was, like, my parents, they were like, he's responsible, he can take them himself. And so when they gave me a 40 pill prescription, I would pinch a couple off the side here and there, and then sell them to kids that were in like high school or community college. Didn't really matter. But turns out, okay, so like the 20 milligrams you can charge like maybe like $10, right? But the 80 milligrams, because they last so long, you can charge $50 a pill for those.
Damn.
And so it was like kind of like Breaking Bad-ish in that, like, I'm just this fat black kid with glasses, but I'm the one who has like the connect. It's just not very. I didn't look the part, which helped and which made it last so long.
But that's also, even when I think about like, because as an adult now, and I watch more like foreign movies and then American movies, it starts to make me realize how much things that we think are a stereotype are actually not just a stereotype because it's like bad, but also it's like actively created by Hollywood. Like when you say we don't like the parts, like, yeah, come to think of it, most of the people I knew who sold drugs in school didn't look like what a Hollywood person would have made it. It's like, but that's actually probably more true. It's like,
oh yeah,
it's the person with ADHD or the parents who are very neurotic and making sure they're getting all their thing, and that's who has all the drugs, and they're usually the most like, everything's in a Ziploc bag, and I'm very careful. Because it's like, the parents who would, my mom didn't take me to, I had allergies, and she was like, I don't know, just like sleep it off. So now as an adult, I'm like, wait, I could have solved I'm like, if you just took me to an allergist. I was like breaking out in canker sores all the time. She was like, seems like stress.
Yeah. Yeah. I was very careful with it. I was always like, don't text me, don't call me. It has to
Were
be
you
face
actually
to
scared of
face.
it? I mean, I guess it is technically illegal, but I wonder how much like gravitas kids understand about selling drugs. Like, it's a little different in like because you're like, this is mine and I'm giving it to my friends. Or when? How did it
Yeah.
start? Or were you immediately like, let's get into the biz?
It started when I went over a friend's house and his brother was like home for the holidays, and he was like, "Do any of you know anybody who has Addies?" And I was like, "Is that like some sort like I'm young, so I'm like, is that some sort of disorder?" It's like, "Oh, I have Addies. I have full blown Addies."
Oh
I
my
was like
god!
looking, it's like, is this guy talking about
And
like
you're like,
AIDS or something? I don't know. Like,
and he's like, no, I'm
I'm
talking
just
about
a
you.
child, so
You
I'm
have
like
nose.
dumb. But he's like, no, like Adderall. I'm like, oh, I have Adderall. And then he's just like, what milligram? And I was like, well, I mean, I have 80s. He's like, you have 80s? And like when
Damn.
I saw the look in his eye of like, you have exactly what I want. And he was like, how much? And I was like, uh, let me think about it. And then like, because I'm still like a child, and I
Yeah,
like,
you're like, $5,
yeah, I'm
$6.
like, I'm like, how much can I, how much? And so then my friend was like, dude, I really want to go to the movies, but I'm like strapped for cash right now. Like, do you want to go to the movies? And I was just like, okay, different question, Brian. Do you want me to charge your brother $100 for two of these pills so we can go to the
Oh
movies?
my god.
So that is like what started. Me and him just wanted to go to the movies and see Superbad
That's
really
an
bad.
expensive movie date, but
And so I was just like, "Do you want me to charge your brother so we can just both go to the movies on his dime?" He's like, "Sure." And so I was like, "All right, it'll be 100 for two." And he's like, "Yo, that's like super cheap." And I was like, "Oh shit, like these could have gone for more." He's like, "Yeah, dude. Like, he's like, at grad school, like I buy like two for like 140. Like you could sell these for like $70 a piece." I was like, "Okay, thank you for giving me a price gauge. Um,
damn.
this is great." And so then
I feel
my
like
friend
there's
that
the older kid because it always seems like older kids know more and are like you feel like confident that they're like when they say it's okay it is, but like hearing this whole story that you're both children in a way like you and the older kid like the brother
yeah.
and hearing him be like yeah this is what it is. I'm sure later he was like oh no I was also like totally shouldn't have been like this confident about how much Adderall I'm taking.
Oh yeah,
Like
yeah.
but you're probably like oh it feels fine like there's no like
Yeah.
fear of like oh what if it affects him poorly. It was more just like should I get rid of this or not.
I feel like it was the thing where like, okay, I wasn't looking into anybody's health backgrounds, but I figured like if I can take it, then he can take it.
Oh
Also,
no.
he's like, I don't know, he was like 50 pounds bigger than me. So I was like,
I've
it
been
was just
told that
like,
people who don't have ADHD when they take it it feels like crack or coke or something like it makes you
yeah, just like,
wired which
yeah,
is
they're
so
just
wild
wired.
because it's the I mean it is how I figured out I have ADHD is like I don't do coke and I don't because I mean I tried it once and it didn't affect me and then I was like it's
Uh-huh.
boring and I was also I'm like why would I don't know want to spend money on something that doesn't it's like everyone it's like a rich drug but I'm like even
Yeah,
I can
I
just
think the thing,
talk to like I talk that much normally so I just like wait till everyone's on coke and then boom get in with my stuff and then they'll listen and I'm like just hang around sober.
I feel like that's the same thing for me. Like, I was not attracted to Coke because one of my favorite movies is Casino, and just watching his wife just be like, I can't stand, and like, what a mess! Like, what a mess that drugs makes people. So I was
Yeah.
like, nah, I'm good.
But
I'm okay on
Adderall,
that.
so like my therapist before I got my diagnosis, she was like, "You probably do have it." She's like, "But you have to go to like an official center and do it." And she was like,
Mm.
she's like, "If you've ever," she didn't say like take it, but she's basically saying like, because I think it's so easy to get. She's kind of like, "Well, if you would know if you have it if you took it, like you'll know if you take Adderall and it affects you weirdly that you don't have ADHD." And my
Yeah,
sister got a diagnosis, so then I did try it, and it literally the best way I can describe it is nothing. Like it's nothing. But
yeah,
then over time, I'm like, whoa, I got shit. Like I don't feel it kick in or anything. I just feel normal and then like I'll get my work done and I'll realize, oh, I didn't have a panic attack. Oh, I didn't fall asleep. Wait a minute. It's like the absence of my like brain freaking out, which I think is when it's supposed to be used. But that's why I always get nervous when people ask for it. And I really like
yeah.
don't. I mean, it's so limited. I don't have that much extra anyways. But people will be like, how much? And I'm like, if I were to give anyone this, I cannot charge for it because I cannot start this precedent. Like I just, I like when I'm not on my meds, I'm like way too wired. So.
Oh yeah, no, the thing is, like, you can't even split them apart like a Tylenol because they're just little beads in there. Like, you've seen it. Like, it's just, So I was like, all right, I'm going to just make I kind of dosed it out in terms of like classes. Like, I'm like, okay, if it's an easy class that I could handle without Adderall, because I already, like, I was taking a lot of like creative writing courses and stuff. So I'm like, okay, we have creative writing. We have English language, and we also have AP US history today. Those are things you love. You do not need Adderall today. So I would just like pop one out, and then like for the days where it's just like, okay, we got pre-calc and Japanese, and we also have ASL, and you don't know like 8 of the hand forms that you're supposed to do. So today we're gonna take some Adderall so we can remember, because one time I did a ASL test and I forgot a lot of what I was supposed to write down. And then when I got out, I was just like, how does anybody remember this shit? And then this one kid was just like, dude, you got to like make it like, so it's something fun that you remember. He's just like, so like most of my shit, I just pretend is like gang signs. Cause that way it's like dope to remember. I'm like, okay, well I don't know. That's weird. But
I
okay,
love how
cool.
high school. Yeah. It's like when you talk about like, it is just such a time, like everything, like it just really brings you back to just like, well, you feel so adult, and you are in a way like you are viewed by the world like you're an adult. You move around, you can't be mauled by yourself. But then like you'll say things like, "Oh, I guess I could sell Adderall." Oh, this is how like it's just like just enough where you're like, okay, like I remember being young and thinking I knew shit, and it's like, I see, like it, but it's so universal. Like just having that friend who says something, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's how we do it. Like.
Exactly. And then I don't know. It was just a weird time because as soon as it like got out in school that I had it, like other kids that were also taking Adderall were coming up to me and they were like, "How much do you sell yours for?" And I was just like, 50. And they're like, "Dude, I charge like 10 for mine." I'm like, "Well, what milligram are you taking?" And they're like, "Oh, like 20." I'm like, "Well, that's why, because like mine's really bad. You guys like."
Damn. So when you were saving them, you got to the point where you were saving them so that you could sell more. Did it get to the point where you had to be like, because originally you have some extras and then you're all like, oh, every time I sell one, it's more money. Are you then cutting into the way of like what you need for work?
I wasn't, because I mean, it's high school. Like, I mean, you can handle it, it's just, I'll say this, Adderall made me like absolutely superb at learning, like just top tier. Like I turned into like Hermione almost, just like I know exactly what, please me, I know, like I have so much. And then like when I wasn't taking it, I was like, I know it, but I don't need to say it, like it just made me like incredibly outgoing academically, but socially it was like the freaking border wall. Like I was just staring up at it and I was just like, oh man. Oh, okay, like the dance is coming up. I should probably ask somebody to dance. No, you should probably stay home and write. Like, just it was like how I don't know. How when like you first got into comedy and you were like, shows are everything. Must do shows. That's how it was.
Well, because I'm very fascinated by this, and this is like probably the third podcast in a row where something like this has happened, where someone's described something, and I'm like, I know what you're talking about, but I'm the opposite. And it's made me start to think like, am I an alien? Like, what the fuck? But I know it's not, because everyone's brain is different. But what you're describing on Adderall is how I used to feel all the time growing up. Like I was Hermione Granger. I was like, hey, can I do extra credit? And then if I was like not that close to, because I was like a straight A student, but also like that I had not much going on, and I really like school, so very nerdy. But if I was like A- or in that 91, 90 territory, I would always ask for extra credit, because what I could predict is that I'm at risk for it going down. So if I do poorly on my next test, it might go down. So then I would preemptively ask, and usually teachers at that point are like, you're obviously working hard and studying. Like it's not because you slacked off and now need to catch up. So they'd usually like give me some crumbs, but like they'd be like, okay, do this for 5 extra points. I'm like, okay, thanks. That was me. Yeah. But that was me not on Adderall. That was me And that's why I never got diagnosed. But ADHD, as you might know, because your dad's a psychiatrist, also has,
Yeah.
a lot of other elements besides focus, which is like emotional instability. There's also like when your dopamine drops out of nowhere, it can affect your body in different ways. So
Yeah.
I had a lot of that, like overly giggly laughing and couldn't stop, or just suddenly angry or suddenly sad. But
Yeah.
people just go, oh, that sounds like you're a growing teenager. So I never
Yeah.
got the diagnosis because I was that Hermione Granger in school.
I'll say that, okay, it came to an end. I said 4 years, but it came to an end around like my junior year because the same guy that I sold to, he like was just over, our house because our families were friends, right? And he was
Uh-huh.
like, "Hey man, uh how much would it be for you to just give me all you have right now and I'll give you
Whoa.
something in return?" And I was like, okay, what are you talking about? And he's just like, okay, well, how many 80s do you have left? And I was like, about 20, right? And I'm
Damn.
like, I've taken all my midterms, I'm
Mm.
fine, right? And he's like, how would you feel if in like just as trade
Oh no.
for those 20 80s, I give you a half a pound of
Oh
marijuana?
my god.
And I mean, I don't know. I was a junior and I was going to like parties and stuff, and like people were asking for weed more so than they were asking for Adderall. Just so I was like, I could just take the turn with this. But the thing with the weed was, I wasn't going to sell at school because obviously, like Adderall
Uh-huh.
doesn't smell. It
Yeah.
doesn't like there's. It's just
Which is
you know.
interesting when you think about now that so many places are decriminalizing marijuana. It's like when you actually look at the effects, like weed is so much more harmless than selling
Oh, so
Adderall.
much more
Adderall is like a
harmless.
straight up changing your body chemistry. Weed is like
Yeah.
calm you down for a bit and then you just like it's worlds of difference. Yet one seems, and even like yeah, if I was selling weed at school, it would feel very scary because it is this
Yeah.
thing that the teachers and everything like ingrains in your brain like this is a criminal act. But when you think about it,
Yeah.
you're like, it's a flower that grows in the wild.
Well, if we're talking about a criminal act, I was like, how can I get rid of
Mm-hmm.
this
Mm.
and also make like a small profit? But part of me was just like, okay, I was making a lot of money and it was clearly improving people's grades. If I'm going
You're
to
like a little
sell
Robin Hood.
distraction, then like I want it to be like for something good. So I was like,
You're a
okay,
moral
I'll
drug
sell
dealer.
to my friends that won't tell. And I was also volunteering at this elderly people's home.
Mm.
It was probably like a mile away from my house, but a couple of the people were like, they were complaining about like arthritis and like they couldn't go to sleep and stuff. And I was like, oh, I have a very strong indica here, banana sherbet kush, I believe this is. And so like I would always bring like at least like a couple grams for like the old people that I liked, and I would just give
Aw,
it to
that's
them. Like I
nice.
was like the Robin Hood of just like, yeah, here you go. I don't want your bones to hurt at night. Oh,
Aw.
thank you so much. So it's like it was like a peak of the mountain. Like, okay, like I gave my dogs away to a soldier. That was very good. I was selling Adderall, and it may have affected the heartbeats of some of the people I sold it to because 80 milligrams is a lot. And then to finish, like my senior year of high school, I was just like, I'll sell, but then I'll just give away some of this stuff because it just made like for old people, I feel like we should do what Israel does. I don't know if you know this, but Israel if you go to the pharmacy and you are like an Israeli native and you complain about, glaucoma
Mm.
or like, arthritis, they'll give you the medication that your doctor prescribed you, but they will also give you 2 grams of pot just cause.
Damn, Israel. But you also, everyone has to fight in the army. So I think they're just like, by this point, we know you've given up a lot of your time and energy and body for us. So just take something. Which
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
also, America does exploit our citizens. And then we don't do anything. We let them camp
Not at
outside of
all.
veterans hospitals after their vets or after they come back and just go, well, sorry, you don't have health insurance.
Oh yeah.
I'm
If you
saying this
look
with
at
a
the
smile, not because I enjoy it. I'm because
no.
it's so awful that I think it. That I've like realized that that's how I cope now is when I think I'm saying a joke and I realize there's no punchline. I just have to say it with a smile. But yeah, I didn't know that about Israel. That I like that. That's
Yeah.
interesting. I think
They'll
that's
just
funny
give
that
you
you
pot.
say it like you connect the dog to the Adderall to this because, well, also I will say having a dog is kind of like drugs in a way. Like truly,
Oh
what
yeah.
are drugs? Like obviously there's what are drugs? But what is the goal is what I mean. Like obviously with your prescribed medicine in that moment, it's medication. And then for some
Yeah.
people, some people do use it to cheat, right? Because their goal is to get ahead without doing the work. So then that would be, you can't control what someone's motivation is. And some people's goals is to feel high, right? So that's different.
Yeah.
So I think that's the nuance that gets lost when we talk about drugs or we just criminalize all of it because then you're like, well, what about it? Clearly, you see that there's a lie because you could say Adderall's bad, but then people who prescribed it, it's good. So then it can't
Yeah.
fundamentally be bad. You have to actually
Exactly.
break it down and say, well, what are we talking about here? Selling drugs is bad, or pharmaceutical companies want to make money, so selling drugs is bad. Like what? There's so much to it.
Yeah, I would say the bad associated with the Adderall is just because I knew that I had to like stop at one point when I saw a guy that I knew I sold an Adderall to, and he pulled it out at a party, popped it open, crushed the little beads, and then snorted it. And I was like, oh, okay, now I have to stop this. This is terrible. Like this is first of all, you're supposed to swallow it, asshole. Like,
That's
you
the
know,
difference. Some people take it as a party drug. A lot of people,
Jesus
usually
Christ.
when people ask if I have Adderall, it's because they aren't prescribed. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
that's what I just like that one time when someone was like going through a very hard time grieving, they asked for one and I said, I won't sell this to you, but you can have it. But like the reality is it does affect people differently, but we're not told that. So like you could handle the 80 sort of. So you think,
Yeah.
oh, it's nothing to give it to someone else. But that's because there's like an inherent lie that you didn't know, which is that maybe you probably weren't supposed to be prescribed the 80. So
No, not
but
at
like
all.
that's the thing, right? Like you think, well, like someone prescribed this to me. So you're not
It was
coming
my
at
dad too. It was my
yeah,
dad. So that way I was just like,
exactly.
this can't be that bad. I mean, dad wouldn't poison me, would he? Like that's ridiculous.
Probably not actively, but I do think that doctors are very much pressured by the pharmaceutical industry, and
Oh,
they're told things are okay because they're
yeah.
approved. But then when you really come down to it, you're like, well, if I'm the one taking this every day, I can tell you, like when I started like Prozac earlier this year, and my body just takes a while to adjust to anything. But I don't think this was from that, but it's probably from a mix of things. But I was like telling my therapist, I was like, I think that like I'm growing boob hair, like random stuff. And she was like, that's not a thing. And then I was like, and I'm like, my sleep schedule is weird. She's like, that doesn't make sense. But then I was like, but something's changing. And like, she just kept being like, no, that's something else. But what it is probably none of these are the actual solution. And when you change one thing, something else goes off and then you have to whack-a-mole it. So
Yeah.
I ended up just like trying to be more like now I still try to do all the holistic stuff and only use meds to get me through the hard times. But it is wild how the doctors will just be like, once you're on it, you can just have it forever. And you're like, well, but the goal is not to just like be depending on, I don't want to be like, go from a cordless phone to a corded phone. Like I'd like to
Yeah.
transition back to being free. Like,
Exactly.
I don't know.
Exactly.
Wow. Well, so you didn't ever have to stop because you got caught. You just were like morally learned the lesson from,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Because
like
I mean, all right. Like I feel like because there were a lot of kids that like sold pot in high school, but they were stupid about it. Like they would bring it to school, they would keep it in their car. Like I was just like, if I'm gonna do this, like one, it has to be people I know. It has to be by referral. I'm going to do it like hand to hand,
uh-huh.
face to face. Like don't even like okay. When I was like
People with rich parents who can get them out of trouble. So no.
yeah, no, I was like, look, if you want it, you have to meet me here. I would always meet at the same place. I would meet at the apple tree by the Cranbrook track, and there would be so many like private school kids running track that we kind of got lost in the mix. Like if a cop was looking for a drug buy,
Yeah.
there's like 400 kids out here just doing various track activities. It's the perfect place for a handoff. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought really, really hard about this because I was like so neurotic. Also, while on Adderall, I'm just okay. okay, Tanner, if you're gonna deal drugs, you
You've
gotta
mapped
be
out like 5 different escape routes. Like
yeah.
you have a
That
boat
and the fact
waiting
that
under
like
a cave. Like
me and my dad were watching The Wire too, so I was just like looking at all these like messy drug deals. I'm just like, no, I gotta be better than that. Like I would always like wear like a shirt and tie. Like it was so fucking pretentious.
Oh my God, you wore a shirt and tie. I'm gonna go meet my dealer. Are you selling me a car?
Oh no, I was, and then the crazy thing, the crazy thing is like when Breaking Bad finally came out and they like revealed Gus Fring as a character, I'm like, oh, that was me in high school, just like shirt and tie, just like, hello, thank you very much. Yep, I only take 20s. Thank you so much. Bye.
You
Thank
take it seriously. That's the business. So like everyone gets something different out of all these experiences, which is why it has to be more nuanced. You learn business skills. You didn't go into it to sell drugs. You happen to have drugs and you are a good businessman. And so you treat it like a business, even if people are covert about it. You're like, well, I'm going to have my rules and you're going to follow them. And you didn't have to do that, but you did. And that probably helped you in your future for other business things.
Yeah, I would do like, okay, because I don't know if you ever had like Adderall kind of like fucks with your appetite, but you like still crave like sugar and stuff. So I would I had this deal. I used to call it the C deal, is where I was like, okay, I can give you 2 for 100, or I can give you 2 for 110, and here's a free cinnamon roll that I baked myself.
Oh my God, this is so sweet. You have to write this into some. I don't know if you are working on narrative stuff, but you should save this for something. It's very funny.
Oh, okay. I should. But
I mean, not save it. I mean, like, tell me. But also, I think it's very funny that you baked your own cinnamon rolls.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't even go to Costco and buy a shit ton. You were like, I made these with love.
Yeah, and then my mom was always just like I would always like, my mom's heading out to the grocery store, and she's like, you need anything? I'm like, can you get me some like some Pillsbury cinnamon rolls? And she's like, you ask for those a lot, but I never see you eat them. What are you doing with them? I'm like, I'm just taking them to school for girls. And then she was like, that's sweet. I'm like, oh my God, yes, like just
Damn.
saved myself on that one.
Wow, have you talked about this in stand-up?
No, I should.
So
I
funny.
should
It's so funny that you offered, because when you said the sweets thing, I thought you were gonna like, okay, you threw in some candy, like it's like might as well, but it's not like, but you took, this is like extra effort. Like,
yeah,
this is called like extra credit. That's the Adderall.
Yeah. It's the Adderall. Like if I hadn't been taking it, I'd been like, here's a sucker. Enjoy your pills. Like,
that's funny. Yeah, because I know a lot of people, especially in comedy, who like, we're on Adderall as kids, and it's just interesting seeing. It's different as an adult because it's like you just have to be honest with yourself. Like, where your lines are. As a kid, it's a little harder because you haven't learned the hard way yet sometimes when you go too far. As an adult, I'm just like, I've quit drinking before. I've like quit things and successfully and changed my lifestyle successfully. So when I started Adderall, I was very aware of that because people talk about how addictive it is. And my psychiatrist is like, you have to be careful with the appetite suppression. So I would literally like time, and I don't eat very well to begin with because my ADHD, I'll sometimes get too focused during meal times and then skip it anyways. So when I started medication, I like would give myself like a schedule, like it's noon, time to go eat lunch. And if I wasn't hungry, I'd like eat a small sandwich. So I actually got better at eating when I was on Adderall because literally I was like overcompensating for the fact that I might not be hungry. Which is also partly not being like, I had to be honest because of course, as a young woman in Hollywood, even though this is bad and I don't encourage it, there's always a temptation to be like, well, what if I just like let it go a little bit? Would I lose some weight? But I'm like, no, because you're actually treating something. And if you really want to see if it's working, you cannot just be fucking around with your body weight you have to just actually eat what you would eat. And then if you want to lose weight, do it after. But like, don't be doubling up here. Don't be greedy. Like, because it can go a very bad way because you won't know what is affecting you because of your body's changing, like because you're dropping weight or because you're starting a new drug.
No, I get it.
But that's really tough because it's like the only, like these psychiatrists I meet with like once a month on a video. Like they don't like, you can lie. But
that's the
you shouldn't, like, and I don't because I know how easy it is. I'm like, well, I'll just be the one paying the due later. Why would I want to set my future self up for something shitty? But it's hard to learn that. I think I had to learn that through. I don't know if I started as a teenager, I would have it as easy. I think.
True. True. I don't know. I feel like, because especially the place where I went to school, a lot of kids were taking Adderall, but they were doing it at like the 20 milligram. And so like 20s, those are like, I feel like the only reason I ever sold was because of my dosage. And that in and of itself is
Uh-huh.
like the decision that I made, which,
Yeah.
I don't know. And then the thing was, I wasn't even like buying anything like flashy to show off the amount of money I was making. Like, I'd say at the end of those 3 years, I probably made about, I don't know, like 4 grand. But like,
That's a
it's
lot for a
not,
high school kid, for
it's
sure.
a lot for a high school kid. And it also like set up my savings, which was nice, but I don't know, when my dad like he was just like, "Oh, let's go get your first car," and then he helped like pay for
Aw.
it. Like a part of me was like, "You don't need to do that.
Aw.
I have like 4 times the amount this car's worth, but it's okay. I'll fix it up myself." But like, and then there's like other things where you're like, I, I don't know. It was like when it was time to buy like SAT prep and like ACT prep and stuff, I bought all my books and stuff. And my parents were like, "Where'd you get the money from?" I'm like, "Oh, I just had a friend give me his stuff." Like, I had to like
Yeah, there were
lie about
secrets
that
that
too.
weren't on purpose, but you didn't want to get in trouble. But like it's not
Yeah.
like you were spending the money on like fancy shoes. Like you were buying SAT books.
Yeah, no, I was the fancy shoes or like a hoodie, like none of that stuff. Like if anything, I spent the most money on is probably good stuff like SAT and
Like they would
ACT
probably be
prep.
proud if they knew you were spending money you earned, but you didn't want to let them know how you earned it. Like that's how
Yeah,
like deep
I
down you're
just
actually just like, always being you, which is I love when people have these like what you learned wasn't that you were bad or to do any of this. You just learned over time, oh, this isn't exactly what I thought. There's more to giving my Adderall to kids who don't need it than I thought, and then you stop. But you can
yeah.
see from the beginning, like it was never you never like dipped your hand into crime. Like it's just
No.
so interesting when you actually break it down how people misconstrue this idea of like, oh, kids selling drugs. It's like, yeah, they're kids. They don't know anything, and
Yeah,
that's
they don't know I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. All I knew is that people gave me money and I got really good at making cinnamon rolls.
I love that you were because it's in a way you could have just started like a little baking company too and sell
Oh,
cinnamon
totally.
rolls. Just like bring a little
Bleed
cart
over
to
though.
school and sell cinnamon rolls. Well, I really like the story for many reasons because I feel like it gets into childhood stuff, but also gets into ADHD, which I've talked about a lot because when I started this pod, I wasn't on it. I literally, my listeners who've heard from the beginning have heard me talk about how I think I have it and all the things to when I finally went and got the diagnosis and started. On the weekends, I really don't take my Adderall. As you can tell, I'm
No.
very all
Yeah,
over
no.
the place. I try to lower my
That's for
tolerance.
non-focus meme. No, not like weekend Tanner can stare at a bird for 20 minutes. That's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
I allow
Well,
myself
weekend,
to
I
do
just
that.
talk a lot when I'm not on. I mean, like I said, it's opposite of. I feel like most people I see on Coke are like how I sound right now.
Mm.
And now that I'm doing this, I'm like, next time I do a pod, I should probably take Adderall.
No.
Like, it's like, I'm
Do
just
what
like,
you want. Do
whoa,
what you
what's
want.
up? Ideas, cool, let's do it.
Bing bang boom.
I just started another podcast while I was recording this podcast. Well, thank you for sharing that. I want to end with, I usually end with like a game or something silly. Lately, I've been doing this one just because it's kind of easy and fun, and I like hearing what people say. So it's very simple. I just ask, what are 3 rules you have for like if you were to start your own society? So it's not like, it doesn't have to be religious, doesn't have to be governmental. It could be, but it could be as simple as like everyone's left-handed. So no magic, but the idea is like, this isn't our world. So if, let's say you actually got a land or an island and
Okay.
people willingly could go there and they would have to follow your rules in order to live there, what would those be?
All right. I'm gonna start with the extreme one
Okay.
first. I think that, and like listeners don't judge me on this, but I read it like 3 days ago and it's hilarious to me. I think that if you cheat on your wife, that you should resolve it the way they did in the 1200s in Italy. The way that they would
How did
do
they
it
do
is
it?
that a priest would dig a hole deep enough for the man to like stand in
Huh?
and would come up to his waist, right? And the man has to stay in that hole. Then they give the man like a thick branch or like a stick or something, right? And then the wife, they trace a line of like a circle of salt about maybe like 12 feet around the hole, right?
Uh-huh.
And the wife is allowed like I think like a wooden stick, the same as the man, but also she gets a bag of rocks. And
Is she in a hole too?
no, she
Okay.
is standing above. She has the high ground, right?
Okay.
And so the man has to stay
Ah.
in the hole. And I feel like the way that the church set it up was just like, all right, if the man wins, then he gets to decide to what happens with the woman. If the woman wins, then the man gets to decide to what happens to the lady. And I
Wait, there's
feel
a
like
fight? What's the
if
fight? What do they fight?
no,
How do
like
they
okay,
win?
the thing in the 1200s in Italy, divorce was so like taboo
Yeah.
that they thought, okay, if you feel so strongly that you don't want to be with this person, and obviously marriage was viewed as like this God-given, like, you know, like how dare you break a vow with God,
Mhm.
that you're willing to put your life on the line for it. So like I feel like in that society, especially how people think now, it's just like, damn, I should really think about who I want to
Yeah.
be with. Otherwise, I'm gonna be waist deep in a hole with
Wait,
her
I'm
with a bag
confused.
of
What
rocks over
happened
me.
after the? Okay, so they're in the hole, and then what? They're just in the hole, or does she like whack him
No,
with the rocks, or like?
they put the man in the hole waist deep, and then they give the woman the bag of the rocks, and they're like, okay, fight now,
Oh,
like
okay. So
fight,
like do
like
whatever you
yeah,
want. Okay.
yeah. It was like some Mortal Kombat shit. It's terrible.
Damn.
It's terrifying.
Do they actually? So I mean, knowing how women are women and people, even if they didn't think that all the time, I imagine they're giving them rocks. Some women are beating the hell out of these guys. Like, they're not pulling punches, right? So like,
Oh yeah,
I didn't know.
no.
So that's like, I'm very surprised. I'm surprised to hear that they were just like, yeah, beat up your husband.
It was very
I don't
popular.
condone it, but
No,
that's a very powerful image that I just was not expecting to be from the 1200s.
no. It was very popular in like Russia, obviously, very very good. But like I feel like that's the most Russian thing you can do back in the 1200s. Like I do not like my wife. Okay, Barry, get the shovels. Like you know,
Stand
like
in
that
this
kind of
hole
stuff.
and let her whack you in the head with rocks.
Jesus Christ, it's like it's so hardcore. Like it's
That's
ridiculous. Like
crazy.
it's like
It almost makes you realize. I mean, I've been talking so much about animal behavior lately, just because I've been like waking up with the sun, so I'm like hunter gatherer. But it almost makes me feel like sometimes we put ourselves in these we put ourselves in the rules of society for a reason, to have order, but when someone breaks the rules, we do need to process it, but we don't want to process it like cannibals or
no.
barbarians, so we do what we say is a system, like put a man in a hole. But when you really look at what's going on there, like if no context, is that any different than just two people duking it out when they're pissed? But
Exactly.
it's the same, but except that they make it feel like, well, first you come to the court, and then the court orders you to duke it out. But the reality is, like, animals like hold all that aggression in their bodies, and then they get it out by either like
Yeah.
shaking it or fighting. And I think the maybe subconscious reason the church maybe did that was because they know if these people are going to stay together, they need to process this, whatever this anger and pain is. You can't
Yeah.
bury it because it'll come out. So it's like, get it out right now, and then afterwards, if you actually feel good about this person, you've actually literally buried the hatchet by hitting him. Which I don't
Hitting
condone,
him.
but I do think that's where it comes from. It comes from like, you need to get that energy out, and you have to express it specifically about this situation before you can move on.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's your rule. So husbands and wives would be fighting. Are we still highlighting the man in the hole, like in this gender equality world, or would they both be in a hole? Or is it not a gender? Are we also just living is your world where men are just automatically given the advantage? Therefore, when they're at a disadvantage, they have to be lower. Because I imagine that's why the man's in the hole.
Let's go with the church rules. Let's go old school. Let's go old school.
old
Bury
school.
the man.
All right,
Bury the man.
burying the man. All right. What's the second rule? Controversial.
Second rule, I believe that everyone should be taught how to homebrew. Like, what the fuck are you paying for beer for? And just like, also like, I got into that like a little bit in high school. Everything I made tasted like shit, but it's just like,
You're
it's
brewing beer in high school and selling Adderall.
it's completely legal to buy the ingredients to
Sure.
make your own alcohol. Also, you can just like blend an apple and leave it in your refrigerator, like in
Mm-hmm.
a bowl, and then like 2 weeks later, you just have apple alcohol. It's gonna taste like shit because there's no sugar, like,
Mm.
and nothing like that you've put in it to make it taste good. But it's very easy to make alcohol. Like
Oh yeah.
I made like apple wine once for Thanksgiving,
Mm-hmm.
and that turned out like a little too good because like I mean what usual alcohol content of like wines and stuff is like 30%. I tested mine and it came back like 39%. Like that shit was like
Whoa.
Viking strong. It was crazy. Like, and I
Yeah.
only had
Damn.
like 2 bottles, and my uncle drank both of them, and I was so effing
I gotta
pissed.
get your recipe. I never tried to make alcohol at home, but I love to make stuff. Like actually now I'm like I want to make pickles, but what it's interesting that as you said that I was like oh cool, and then I was like wait a minute, duh, like humans made alcohol, and
Yeah,
then
it's so easy.
we got better at it, and then we put labels on it, and then of course they're like refined taste now, and then you buy them, and then it
Yeah,
is wild to be like did you know you can just ferment fruit? And it's like yeah that's how it's made.
yeah,
It's a long process. So it's like, if you really want to do that. But that is so funny because I feel like, yeah, children, it almost makes me want to be like, no, we must regulate. But no, we don't. If a kid
no,
is smart enough and ambitious enough and cares enough to ferment their own alcohol, well,
yeah,
either they're like, it's not that hard to get alcohol if you really wanted to in school. Like, not condoning it, but if they put in so much effort to make it, like they probably could have also gotten someone to buy it for them. So at that point, you really just need to let this kid be the smart kid and just figure it out because like you can't be like no groceries for you kid, like that's wild.
yeah. Also, like I feel like the if you teach someone where something comes from, they're a little bit more responsible with it.
Mm.
Like I had a friend that like worked on like offshore like oil and stuff,
Mm.
but he was like the most like tree huggingest guy, and I was just like, why? He would be like he wouldn't drive anywhere for 3 days, and then he would get all the stuff he needed done on a Thursday by driving, and I'm like,
Oh
what are you doing? He's like, just doing my part, man. Saw a lot of stuff out there, like just like
damn,
you know
yeah, true, we just need to
yeah.
travel more and see more.
I feel
Okay.
like if people knew where it came from and like how to make it, they'd be like, you know what? I know exactly how much this test's at, so I'm gonna have two, and then call a friend to drive me home. Like it would just be. I
Yeah,
feel like people would be more responsible.
I agree with that. I think that's true. Yeah. Okay, third rule, what's your final rule?
Third rule, let's just eliminate homelessness. Everybody has to have a house or a
That's
dwelling
great.
of some sort. That like not so much like bare bones,
Mm.
but like here's your
Comfortable
starter
your
kit.
life, yeah.
Everybody likes this. Like, I don't even want like the projects in my society. I
Yeah.
just want like if anything we would call projects like here's a base home. Like, you know, here's a
This
it
is a fixer upper that, but you have to fix it up. You can't. Yeah, that's it. That's
yeah.
interesting because you're right. Like, because I lived in New York and projects they have projects there, and it's like the thing is if the government is trying to help out, like why would you help out by starting with the bare minimum when you know they have access? Like the government can bail out
Yeah.
companies. If the government is going to do anything at all and be like, here's homes, it makes no sense that you'd be like, all right, well, here's the bare minimum, something that has a, I mean, the projects people will talk about with a negative connotation
Mm.
because it's not as nice, but it's like the thing from the government shouldn't be that. It should actually be fairly nice. Like it should be like
Yeah.
as nice
I'm,
as you put your government officials in. Like if you're gonna use the tax money to put up a government official in a hotel and then you're gonna build a house for one of your civilians, don't you think that it's pretty strange that one has
yeah.
a negative connotation and one has like it's just like just think about it for a second.
Well, I feel like that's the way that the government feels about a lot of things. Like I feel like the reason we got $1,200 and that's it
Yeah,
is because
wild.
like that's probably how much it costs for a politician to like make a dead hooker disappear, or I don't know, like, you know what I mean, like, just like, here, just like it's like that's how much money they would typically throw at a problem that could get them in trouble.
Yeah, because
so
it's
like,
just
okay,
enough
if we just
for
give that to everyone.
Yeah, if everyone gets it, enough people will be like, no, but I want it. I'm not gonna say anything because it's like, you don't want to say no
like,
to $1,200, but when you think about how much they actually have and how much more they could do and how much they're
yeah.
taking and how very little and insulting that is.
Yeah.
Like, here's $1,200 for 8 months. It's like,
yeah, like I feel
fuck?
like in private, like Mitch McConnell's just like, I don't know what they're all arguing about. I mean, $1,200 a person. That's like 70 million dead hookers. Like I did my part. Like, you know, like just that foghorn leghorn butch voice. Just like, God damn
well,
it.
and it speaks to what you said about when people know where things come from, because a lot of those people have accountants.
They
and
have
aren't
no
managing
idea
their
what
own
the
money.
average American goes through.
They're not even managing their own money. Like, I like don't understand how there's billionaires who end up broke. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, if I had $1 billion, sure, maybe I'd get a few more things, but I would probably, I mean, I'm the same size. I don't need a mansion. I would probably live in the same place. Maybe I would buy a house, but probably not much bigger than the apartment I live in now. And then maybe one more dog. And then after that, I'd just use it to live the life I want and be able to give what I want. But like, it's crazy to me that people have to keep adding rooms to their house. It's like, you're not growing as a person. Like, you're still, how many showers does one person need? Truly, like,
yeah, shit.
like,
it's a lot.
that's a crime. Like, you should be, that shower could have paid for someone's college, you know?
Exactly.
Well, I like this. I don't know if I would necessarily live here, but I think there are people who would live here. Mostly the burying and the whole thing kind of, I'm a little sketchy about, but I understand why that would appeal to some people. So that's Tanner Land. If you want to live in Tannerland, where can people find you?
People can find me at Tanner O Comedy on all venues. I'm not on TikTok, but I might try it.
Get on TikTok. I'm on TikTok.
Where all the preteens hang out.
Follow me, the preteen, on TikTok. I'll plug my TikTok. Sure. My TikTok is just Larissa T, which is the same as my Instagram and Twitter. And you can follow this podcast at Tell Me Anything Pod. And that's it. Thank you guys so much.
And then listen to Anomaly Homily as well. It's real good. I've done, I got one with Roy Wood Jr. in there. Yeah. I got one with T Murph from Woke on Hulu. I got one with Teresa Lee as well. Lots of good episodes. A lot of fun. The latest one I dropped today is my buddy John. I went to his wedding yesterday. Ooh. Don't worry, 25 people. That's about it.
Everyone has to add at this point, it's like, just say where you went. It's fine.
I know. But it was a very good ceremony, and like they're just so good together, and I'm happy for them.
That's so sweet. Yeah. Oh, that's great. I'll check it out.
I was the best man. It was good.
I love it. That's why I feel like, I don't know if T Murph would remember me. I feel like we've done the NBC thing before, but I know his name because he ended up getting the NBC scholarship. But once I was on a plane and someone saw I had like the stand up NBC backpack, and they were like, "Oh, do you know T Murph?" It's just like, I wish I remember his name. It was just a guy. He wasn't like a comedian, just a civilian, but he was coming to LA and he was really excited. He's like, "I know he's my homie. Like, do you know him?" And I was like, actually, like, kind of, like, not usually when people say, "Do you know so and so?" You're like, "No." But I was like, kind of, like, not really. We're not close, but like, that I do know who he is. So it was really funny that he like pointed to my backpack and was like, "Yeah, I do."
Yeah.
But that's cool. I'll check that out. All right. Thank you so much for doing the show.
The show. Anytime.